That's right. Where the hell is he?
By that opening, that can sounds like a Mill Street Vanilla Porter, and damn it, I fell for it again!
Don't sound so disappointed. Playoffs are just around the corner, and I know you're eager to reclaim what you lost last year.
You better believe it.
Now that's what I like to hear. Let's get this show on the road.
Face-off.
The playoffs are back, and it looks like they'll be as exciting as ever with some of the first-round matchups we have this year. As usual, let's start with the Western Conference. First up is Anaheim and Winnipeg. The Ducks finished as the top Western Conference team with a 6-4 record in their last 10. However, there was a 4-game winning streak in the middle of their last 10 and just before their last 10 as well. Additionally, against Winnipeg, who performed pretty similarly in their last 10 with a 6-3-1 record, Anaheim went 3-0, outscoring the Jets 13-8. Though 2 of Anaheim's 3 wins against Winnipeg came in either overtime or a shootout this year, the Ducks have shown that they know how to handle the Jets. The only X factor that the Jets may have is the return of Dustin Byfuglien from his suspension. Though I'm glad to see Winnipeg return to the playoffs this year, I think Anaheim has too much over them. For this series, I'm going with the Ducks in 6 games. Next, in the Pacific Division is the big Canadian showdown of Vancouver and Calgary. This is a tough one, because both teams went 6-3-1 in their last 10, and both won 2 out of the 4 games they played against each other this year, with 3 of those 4 games being decided by only 1 goal. However, a closer look at the regular season series between these 2 clubs shows that Calgary has been the victor in their last 2 meetings. Vancouver, though, still has a core of playoff-tested veterans that have been to the Stanley Cup Finals before. This one, I think, will come down to the wire, but in the end, I'm giving it to Vancouver in a 7-game series that will most likely go to overtime in the final game. For the next Western match, we move over to the Central Division part of the bracket for the series between St. Louis and Minnesota. Again, these are 2 teams that have been virtually neck and neck this year. Both went 6-3-1 in their last 10, and the series between them was split at 2 games apiece in the regular season. However, even though the Wild were a powerhouse in February and March, the Blues have lost only 1 game in April to the Wild's 4. And the last game of the regular season, these 2 clubs went head-to-head and St. Louis came out the winner. But one thing I've learned well over the years is that the playoffs are a completely different game than the regular season. That and the Blues have had a tendency to falter in the postseason despite having a strong regular season. Though the numbers are slightly shifted in favor of the Blues, I'm going to go with Minnesota in 7 games for this one. Finally, there is Nashville against Chicago. Here, both teams have hit the skids coming into the playoffs, with Chicago having dropped their last 4 games and Nashville their last 3. They have each only won 4 games in their last 10 as well. Against each other, though, Chicago has been the better club, going 3-1 and outscoring Nashville 12-9. The Predators may be backed by one of the best goalies in the league right now, but I believe Chicago also has them beat with playoff experience. I'm giving this one to the Blackhawks in 6 games. And now I say to you, PK, what are your thoughts on the West?
Now, Anaheim has been is first in their division. Winnipeg just squeaked in with a win. But this one is going to be a tough battle. And I really think that Winnipeg actually might make it to the next round. Anaheim has been known to just crap the bed when it comes to playoffs. They do so well for only so long, and then afterwards it's just going to hurt them. So I think after 7 games, you will see the White Noise and Winnipeg make it to the second round. We've got Vancouver versus Calgary. Now, these two have been close in points, and no one expected Calgary to be in the playoffs this year. They're still rebuilding. But they made it. They actually made it. So, with the goaltending they have, it's going to be hit or miss. Vancouver, they've got some good goaltending, but Ryan Miller just got back from an injury. And I think if they kept Eddie Lack in net, he actually might be solid for all of the series between these two. And if you ask me, I think Vancouver's got this in 6 games. Next up, I have got St. Louis and Minnesota. So what I've got here is I think St. Louis is actually going to do something this year. Not much, but they're going to do something. Minnesota may not have that much of a chance against them. Their defense has been unbelievably good. Their offense has been amazing. Goaltending is still a little shaky. So I'm actually going to have to give St. Louis a pass to the next round in 6 games. Next up, I have got Nashville and Chicago. Well. Chicago's back in this, and Nashville's coming out again. However, Nashville doesn't have a good record of the playoffs, unlike Chicago. I think Chicago's going to come out hard and fast, and Nashville may not see what hit them. So this one's only going to go 5 games, but I think Chicago's actually going to come out ahead in that one.
Okay, now let's shift over to the Eastern Conference. First is the Atlantic Division Series between Montreal and Ottawa. Though Montreal enters the playoffs on a 3-game winning streak, so does Ottawa, who has also gone 6-2-2 in their last 10. For Ottawa, the playoffs started before the season was over, since they had to fight every game down the stretch to make the playoffs. Additionally, the Senators went 3-1 against the Canadiens and outscored them 14-9. Montreal's advantage, though, is Carey Price. He's the best goaltender in the league and has made things happen for the Canadiens in the playoffs before. It will be close, but I'm going with Montreal in 7 games. Next in the Atlantic Division is Tampa Bay and Detroit. Though the Red Wings shut out the Lightning 4-0 in their last meeting, it was Tampa Bay that took the regular season series 3-1 and outscored Detroit 12-9. Add to that Detroit has been struggling down the stretch, going 4-4-2 in their last 10, while Tampa Bay has a 3-game win streak going and went 6-3-1 in their last 10. One last factor is Tampa boasts the second highest goal scorer, Steve Stamkos, while Detroit has been having issues with consistency with their goaltending. This one I feel will go the way of Tampa Bay after 5 games. On to the Metropolitan Division, we have the New York Rangers against the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Rangers finished at the top of the league and have gone 7-3 in their last 10, whereas, despite being a top power through most of the season, Pittsburgh slumped to the point that it took until the last game of the season to secure a playoff spot. Against each other, things are again in favor of the Rangers, who went 3-1 and outscored the Penguins 16-8. The Rangers are the defending Eastern Conference champions, and I think they have the firepower to take down the Penguins in 6 games. And in the last series for this year's opening round, we have the Washington Capitals against the New York Islanders. Another close one here. These two tied in points and ROWs for the year, and have split their regular season series at 2 games apiece. Washington, on the other hand, has slightly outscored the Islanders 13-11, and has a slightly better record in their last 10. While Washington has Ovechkin and Holtby, the Islanders have Tavares and Halak. I see this series going a full 7 games, and I believe it will be the Islanders that come out on top. What's your take on the East this year, PK?
So over in the East, I've got Montreal and Ottawa for the first round. Once again, we got 2 Canadian teams, and only one may pass. So Montreal has been solid. Their arena is a tough one to play in, and Ottawa, hit and miss. They squeaked into the playoffs, barely. So I'm going to have to give this one to Montreal. This one's going to be a 5-game series, which now leaves us with Tampa Bay and Detroit. Well, I hate Detroit. I'm going to flat out say it right here, right now. I hate Detroit. Sorry for the people who love them. I'm not a big fan of them. Detroit has made it into the playoffs for the past, almost, 3 decades now, and they haven't missed a playoff spot? Great, that's awesome. This year, however, they're going to have an early exit. Tampa Bay is going to come out strong, and Detroit's going to come out strong. It's going to be a back-and-forth battle, but Detroit's not going to have the stamina. I think Detroit's going to be going down in 7 games. So the next matchup we have is the Rangers versus Pittsburgh. Yeah, Pittsburgh squeaked in. The Rangers have been solid. They've been on top of their game. And I have to go with the Rangers on this one. Pittsburgh, once again, they're going to come out and they're not going to make it. They're going to have everything shut down. They're going to know how to shut them down. The Rangers are going to know how to shut them down. So they're going to lose it in 6 games. And then we have Washington versus the Islanders. Now, this 2-3 position battle is going to be a tough one. And usually Washington, well, they do the same thing usually every year and crap the bed and lose in the first round. However, I think they got the chance to make it to the second round. I really think they actually have what it takes this year. As long as the Islanders don't shut down Ovechkin, they're going to be able to have a full 4-line team to come around and take out the Islanders in 5 games.
Alright, those are our picks for the first round of the NHL's 2015 playoffs. But, as always, let's move on to what may happen for the remainder of the playoffs based on our picks. Going with my picks in the West, we would see Anaheim against Vancouver and Minnesota against Chicago in the second round. With Anaheim and Vancouver, though the Ducks won 3 of their 5 games against the Canucks this year, 2 out of the 3 times it was only by a goal in overtime or a shootout. So here I'm going with the playoff-proven Canucks in another 7-game series. While over with Minnesota and Chicago, I believe the turnaround that the Wild began in February will continue to serve them well against the Blackhawks, and this will be a case where young hunger will trump playoff experience. I'm giving this one to the Wild in 6 games. This will set up a series between Vancouver and Minnesota for the conference title, where once again I feel Minnesota's drive will help them knock off another team of playoff vets and get them to the next round after 7 games. Over in the East, my first round choices will set up series between Montreal and Tampa Bay and the New York Rangers and the New York Islanders. Between Montreal and Tampa Bay, the Lightning may have had the Canadiens' number during the regular season, but I think Montreal's defense will be firing on all cylinders for the playoffs and will shut down Tampa's offensive power to win the series in 6 games. With the Rangers and Islanders, though, I think the playoff-hungry Islanders will continue to dominate the Rangers as they have thus far this year and advance to the next round after 6 games. That brings us to an Eastern Conference showdown between Montreal and the Islanders. Here, the Islanders will face a team as driven, if not more so, than themselves, and with a better defense to boot. It won't be a walk in the park, but I think Montreal will return to the finals after a 22-year absence with a victory over New York in 7 games. And finally, we would have a Stanley Cup series between Minnesota and Montreal. These 2 teams haven't played each other since December 3rd. They each won a game during the regular season series, and there's only a 2-goal differential between the 2 during their matches this year. Both are driven and boast tremendous talent. But after 6 games, Montreal will raise their first cup since the early 90s. How about your complete predictions, PK?
Let's have a look at the brackets and let's see who's going to advance to the Stanley Cup and win that magical cup, according to me. And for the next round, we have Winnipeg versus Vancouver. Well, I gotta go with my boys on this one because Winnipeg, they've been out of the playoffs for a while. They've had to move teams. They've had all this other stuff happen, and they're not quite ready for the full round of the playoffs. Making it to the playoffs is a good thing. Next year you'll see them be a little bit stronger, a little bit more confident. If not, you'll see them in last place. But this one is only going to go about 5 games, and I think Vancouver is going to be going on to the conference finals. Then we have St. Louis versus Chicago. Well, St. Louis has been known to just sort of, not make it past this round. And I think this is what's going to happen again. Chicago, however, I think is going to come out on top. They're going to take this in 5 games, and I think they're actually going to defeat St. Louis and send them packing back home. So that now leaves us with the conference finals, where we've got Chicago versus Vancouver. Now, these two have battled back and forth year in and year out, with Chicago taking over Vancouver, Vancouver taking over Chicago, but this year it's probably going to be Chicago. Vancouver's going to be tired, they're going to be exhausted. Chicago's got the experience that they're going to shut down their number 1 lines, number 2 lines, and the 3rd and 4th won't even know what to do. So I've got a feeling that Chicago's going to take them out in 5 games going on to the Stanley Cup final. Now, who does that leave to battle for the Cup? Well, let's head over to the East and find out, shall we? In the second round, as I said earlier, we have Montreal versus Tampa Bay. Montreal is still on fire. They're a hot team. As long as they don't have any injuries, they will be able to make it to the next round. And this is going to be the case here. Montreal's probably going to take out the Lightning in 6 games, making them advance to the conference finals. It's going to be a tough one. There's going to be some overtimes. But I've got a feeling that Tampa Bay just doesn't have it in them. Up next, we've got the Rangers and Washington. Well, don't like the Rangers, but the Rangers are going to make it. They are going to destroy Washington. They've got the forechecking, they've got the hitting, they've got the defense, they've got the goaltending. Washington just won't have enough. They will be taken out in 7 games. It will be a back and forth battle, but the Rangers will come out on top on this one. Now we've got the conference finals, and we have Montreal versus the Rangers. Well, here we go. Montreal's going to advance. Yeah, I said it. Montreal's going to advance. They're going to make it to the finals in 5 games. The Rangers are going to be just beaten from the last round, and they're not going to know exactly how to take care of things. And they'll be taken down in 5 games. So that leaves us with the 2015 Stanley Cup Final, where you have the Chicago Blackhawks versus the Montreal Canadiens, and it's going to be the Canadiens. Chicago is going to try. They're not going to know what hit them. Montreal is going to come out on top. They've actually got the better team over Chicago. Chicago, as much as I like to say they would be a perfect contender, they're not going to be. It's going to be 5 games. It's going to be Montreal. And it's going to be just absolutely amazing to watch and win. It's going to be a while before I live this one down if Montreal wins it, because I've got some friends that are just big Montreal fans, and I know, me being a Canucks fan, I'm going to just, It's not going to be pretty, but there we go. Montreal, that's who I choose.
And there are our picks for this year's playoffs. So, PK, do you really think you have a chance to win the cup back this year?
I know it's going to be easy taking the cup from you this year. Just like how I took your beer from you.
Damn it, PK. That was my last one.
I know.
Oh, it is on.